But seriously, it is time to do a foliar feed. And I've got a very specific and targeted foliar feed for tonight. This one's aimed at knocking out Colorado potato bug without the use of chemicals or pesticides, just with trace mineral nutrition, plant health, seaweed compounds, properly chelated trace minerals, and the like. We'll jump into the details in a bit, but um, what I'm aiming to do with this is build up the vigor and vitality of the potato plants, in addition to disrupt the digestive tract of the Colorado potato bug. Two separate goals in the same foliar feed. So, the first goal, obviously, is to build plant health. So, the foliar feed will be targeted to continue increasing plant health. Part of that is to improve plant health overall, and part of that is a compensation for the fact that we have not yet amended our soils and gotten them up to where they will pass a soil test to grow a crop without amendments or without additional support through the growing season, for lack of a better way to say it. And then the other part of this goal is to kill the Colorado potato bug. So two separate pieces, but one foliar feed targeting both of those pieces in one pass. Now, ordinarily when I'm doing my foliar feeds here on the farm this year, I'm creating a foliar feed that targets both potatoes and tomatoes just to, in general, enhance their vigor and support all the pieces that they need from a trace mineral nutrition standpoint, from a hormone standpoint, and from a biology standpoint. But in this case, this particular foliar feed will be targeted specifically and only to the potato crop, and we will ignore the tomato crop for this foliar feed. And I'll probably do a separate foliar feed if it's even needed, for the tomatoes that targets their specific needs. Because what I don't want to do is give them an excess of a nutrient and cause a crash. Most of the problems that farmers have, if it's not something that they encountered, if they took an action, so many times the action you take is an overcompensation or an incorrect action, and you end up causing excesses rather than deficiencies. And excesses can be just as detrimental, if not more so, to a crop's overall health, vigor, productivity, and yield for a growing season. So let's talk about ordinarily the Colorado potato bug comes into that crop and starts chewing on the leaves. Their larvae chew on the leaves. And that's the food energy that they use to become a mature potato bug so they can go lay eggs and create new larvae for later in the season or next year or whatever their life cycle is. I don't recall. I think it's a yearly cycle. Regardless, what we're trying to do is disrupt that process. But we don't want to use chemicals or pesticides because we don't want to add poison to the food that we're trying to grow. So how do we do that? Well, believe it or not, we actually have quite a bit in common with bugs in some ways. Digestive tract is one of them. So I'll relate it to our digestive tract briefly, although our digestive systems and a Colorado potato beetle's digestive systems are definitely very different. But the same basic principles apply. So we eat food, and the biology in our gut processes that food, provided we're eating food correctly and not ingesting things that we shouldn't be. And the biology is actually what makes those food nutrients available to our gut, and then that's absorbed through our gut line. So we all know how it is when we eat something we shouldn't, and our digestive tract gets disrupted. We've all had that experience of having to stay around a toilet, and it's not very fun. But here's the advantage that we have over the Colorado potato beetle. Where we have the advantage, if our digestive tract gets disrupted and we have excess gas going on, we can relieve that. We can let that out. But the Colorado potato beetle cannot. So, this is the thing that we're going to try to exploit on these guys. So, normally they eat the food, digest it, and derive the nutrients from it. But if we can change the food profile that they're eating in any way possible, and we can, and change that from digestion to fermentation, we can get them fermenting in their gut so much so that it explodes them. It basically blows them up from the inside out and kills them because obviously if you explode, it's kind of hard to have all your pieces function. So that's the goal. That's what we're trying to do. So we're using a few different things to do that, and I'll get those out and we'll go over them a little bit. All right. So here's the 4 products I'm going to use. Let's jump. All right. The first one is Rejuvenate. Rejuvenate is an excellent product. It really does help build soil uh, energy and vitality, for lack of a better way to say it. It is basically, from my understanding, a combination of humates, a tiny bit of soluble nitrogen and magnesium, um, molasses, seawater, um, and some seaweed. So basically, this is a very high sugar content with some trace minerals in it and some humic matter in it. I think there's humic and fulvic acid, but I think they're more complex humic compounds than that. Anyway, we won't get sidetracked on the details of it. Point is, this is basically our sugar source to help fuel that fermentation. All right, the next one in the line is C-Stem, Virgin Liquid Seaweed Concentrate. And so what this is a northern kelp seaweed concentrate, and it has been kept as a wet form of seaweed and not dried out like most seaweed or kelp amendments are. The problem when you dry out a kelp or seaweed amendment that you have is you lose all the enzymes out of it, because the enzymes don't carry over when it's reconstituted back into a wet form. And so you lose a huge portion of the actual functionality of it. So C-Stem is excellent for building plant immunity and vitality. And it's basically designed, as it says here on the label, it's a complete and unaltered liquid seaweed concentrate designed to enhance plant health through the provision of nitrogen and potassium. All right, so that's the next one. That's excellent for building plant health and immunity. I've been already using this foliar feed, both of these foliar feeds this season to be building our plant health and immunity. Every foliar feed has had some of these, except the first one I forgot the C-Stem. I kind of was disappointed in myself that I forgot it, but there's a lot of pieces to keep all this right. So here's our next one. This is Rebound Boron, derived from disodium octaborate. Can't say I'm particularly familiar with that. This is basically just a properly chelated form of boron. I suppose this is a great place to pop up the biochemical sequence of nutrition in plants, because you'll note that everything starts with boron. Okay, so the boron is the other part of the Colorado potato bug target. Those are the 2 main ones. And basically what we're trying to do is give them lots of sugar and boron and get fermentation going in their gut instead of digestion. And that'll fix them real quick, and they'll literally start blowing up. And I'm hoping that I can achieve that, 1, and 2, document it and catch it on camera. It'd be really cool to be able to share and show that with you. But this is my 3rd try at doing this. Maybe I can get it right the 3rd time. They do say 3 times a charm, don't they? All right, and the last one on this list is a product called Photomag. This is basically specifically designed to enhance photosynthesis in crops, especially crops that have a little bit too much nitrogen in their system. This will help balance that nitrogen to other nutrients balance out. So you'll notice that this has magnesium, sulfur, boron, cobalt, and molybdenum in it. And so the boron levels are a little bit lower in this. So because of that, I'll have to adjust how much of the extra boron I put in. I probably won't put a lot of this on. I just kind of want to make sure we have a good balanced amount of mostly the magnesium and sulfur and cobalt and molybdenum in this mix, because those directly feed the photosynthetic process from a biochemical perspective, or from a photosynthetic perspective. All right, so those are the 4 that I'm going to use. I'm going to calculate based on my square footage, and I'm going to create a foliar feed and go apply that, and then we should know in a day or so whether or not that worked. So hopefully by Friday night we'll have Colorado potato bug larvae blowing up in the field and catch it on camera. Well, here we are, ready to deliver a foliar feed. And if my calculations are correct, will enhance, stimulate, and improve the health of the plants and wipe out our current Colorado potato bug infestation. Let's have a look at these plants. All right, here we are looking down the rows. And right away, I noticed right off, plants are looking very happy. I think that deep rain that we got really helped them out a lot. But you know, we're still seeing some damage mixed in here. I don't see any Colorado potato bugs in here. And I want to use the light for my foliar feed so I can really be effective. But we'll just take a quick rip down the rows here. And if I spot Colorado potato bug anywhere along the way, I'll get a clip. So just looking down that way, this whole end is really pretty uniform and healthy looking. And you know, again, that reflects our soil quality, as always. But then as I look up here, we got one spot here. Well, no, you can really see it as the soil band changes. So let's just kind of move that direction for a minute. And I'll just point it out to you here as best I can draw on the camera here. There's a line where our soil changes, kind of runs like this. And you can see there's like a transition point there. And you can see it kind of show up in that hump a little bit. And you can see it in the plant vigor and vitality as you look down the rows here. So I spoke with Advancing Eco Agriculture earlier today via email and phone. And they responded by email, which is great. And they recommended plant sap testing. I actually inquired about it because I feel like this crop is worth doing some plant sap testing on, if nothing else, to have a better understanding of our cropping, our soil, where we're at in our season, and what deficiencies or excesses we might have so that we can make a good correction. We have about 45 days left in this growth season. This is about the time these plants are starting to set tubers and grow those tubers out. And we want to make sure that their health, vigor, and vitality is at its maximum potential during this period, because we don't want to limit yield. We're all about not limiting yield. But here we are. Come over here. I do see some more Colorado potato bug larvae in here. So we do have them. We definitely do have them. And like I said, you know, we got flowers just starting to set here. That's an indicator of where we're at in the growing season, you know, respective to the plant's reproductive life cycle. All right. So I see that. And again, this is down on this end, much more than up on this end. This end, we don't see too much Colorado potato bug, and that's that better soil profile again, right? So we'll just catch a shot of this quick too while we have the light post that heavy rain the next day. It's had a chance to soak down a bit and settle out a bit. And you can see, you know, all that grading and the roughness of the disking is already settling in. And it looks like we've made a good kill back on a good portion of the weeds and like, you know, stuff that we don't want, right? There's a little bit left here and a few spots that weren't quite deep cut perfect yet. Part of that was where that tree was, where the disc kept hopping up. But that's okay. I'm going to come back here this weekend and I'm going to put in some buckwheat. I've got some cover crop seed, and I'm going to cut this up again a couple more times probably, and then spread the buckwheat seed down, and then I'll come back through the disc and basically drill it in with a disc and get it down to its appropriate planting depth between 0.75 and 1.5 inches deep. And that will give us better germination. And I'm going to do a heavy seeding. We're going to produce a very dense canopy over this, so it's pretty much just buckwheat. That'll do a couple of things. That'll build our soils very rapidly. Buckwheat will help us oxidize some of those clay colloids and open these soils up and help them flocculate a little bit more. And then because buckwheat will be the primary crop here, it will provide a canopy that will prevent competition from other weeds, and that will help us eliminate weed pressures for next season. So just sitting here thinking after some issues with the foliar feed pump and flipping out a bit more than I should have. Just get very frustrated. And made me realize some personal issues that I am aware of and am working on, and probably will be working on the rest of my life. And I'm not going to talk about those here because those are personal issues. But they made me aware of a more broad perspective of those issues that I thought might be worth talking about. So, in current agriculture, the general concept is, we have to use pesticides to prevent pests and that sort of thing, and fungi and all sorts of issues. And that's not the case. But the sad reality is that's the only example that most people have ever seen in their lives. And so, if the only example you have is the model you operate on, and you aren't even aware that there are other models, you can never adopt those. And then, furthermore, if you've been living and using that example and repeating it every day, guess what? That's going to become your routine, your habit, and a very easy rut to fall back into. And you have to be ever so conscious not to fall back into that rut. Just like when you're working a field and you get a rut developed in a spot, you have to be very conscious about going around that rut and not sinking yourself deeper and not digging that rut deeper. Well, the same applies to agriculture. So if you think you need chemicals and pesticides to grow food, let me just tell you right now, you're wrong. And you might not believe me, but if you stay tuned to this channel and you look around and seek information, it's out there. It's all over the place. I talk about it here. I talk about other places to find that information here. So my advice would be change your perspective and change your model, and don't let the bad example that you've learned be the only example and the only model that you know. Find a newer, better model, a newer, better example, and adopt that and practice repeating it every minute of every day or every year or every whatever the cycle is. Practice repeating that over and over until that becomes second nature. And then you will have replaced the bad example with a good example, the bad model with the good model. It's not easy to do, and it takes a lot of dedication and focus and attention to the issue, but it can be done. So let's do it. All right, just finished off that foliar feed specifically targeted to wipe out Colorado potato bug and enhance plant health immunity on those potatoes. And there is a beautiful moon tonight, the clouds, and I thought I would share.